Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'm super excited by our guests today and can't wait to get our virtual community meeting started for this month. This month at the Trust, we'd like to highlight that we finished construction on our San Pedro house, also known as SP7. It was a substantial rehab of 19 units that has been brought back online, and we have moved in 4 residents so far, and we're looking to move in the rest shortly. We also are highlighting that we have our grand opening for SP7, which is the combination of both the new project that was completed in early October and the project that I just mentioned, San Pedro House, and that grand opening is scheduled for June 7th. We're super excited to welcome everybody into San Pedro House and SP7. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jet Doi, our Chief Advancement Officer.
Thanks, Sierra. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. And I'm so excited about our guest. I had the chance to meet Desiree when we were planning for the 2022 homeless count, and we were launching a deployment site out of Chinatown, and LAHSA had asked us to work with Desiree's team. And it turned out that we got to work together again when Metro organized a count for their stations, and it was such a pleasure to just get to know the whole team and see how efficiently and effectively they're working to address what I think everybody understands to be a major problem. In her current tenure with LA Metro, Desiree Jones serves as the Senior Director of Special Projects in the Office of the CEO and oversees Metro's homeless response programs and Transit Ambassador program development. She also worked as a key state legislative policy staff in government relations at Metro, advocating for legislative changes and funding for Los Angeles transportation priorities in Sacramento. In her free time, Desiree advocates for people experiencing homelessness in LA County through her work on the Union Station Homeless Services Board of Directors. Ms. Jones holds a bachelor's in political science from HBCU Spelman College and a master's in public administration from Georgia State University. Welcome, Desiree. We're so excited you could join us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. As Senior Director of Special Projects for LA Metro, can you share what your role is and why Metro is doing homeless outreach in the first place?
Sure. So as the Senior Director of Special Projects in the CEO's office, I help to make sure that her vision and priorities are infused into funding decisions and program decisions. Specifically with homeless outreach, I'm overseeing the transition of the function from our system security and law enforcement department to our CEO's office. So I've been doing the work for only about 7 months now. And like you said, I've hit the ground running with, our work on the ground with our point in time count in conjunction with LAHSA and with your group. So I'm excited to really be here. Homeless outreach is important, especially on a transit system like Metro's that's so expansive and so many people seek refuge on the system because at times it's clean, there's air conditioning, and it gets people to where they want to be all around the county. So we saw a need, our board saw a need back in 2017, and they actually encouraged and actually direct staff to explore a pilot where we would have dedicated multidisciplinary outreach teams on the transit system. And that pilot now has expanded from 2 dedicated teams to 8 dedicated teams. And we also have partnerships with other agencies like LA Door, LA Mission, the Dream Center, CORE to do outreach, and even Narcan education on the transit system.
I've got to tell you something. I had such a good time the night that I went out with you on the count. We were counting the blue line, and it was wonderful to see your team and your partners and how organized and efficient and effective it was, and how many of the outreach teams really knew the staff in every station and really knew the folks experiencing homelessness in every station. Every organization is concerned about their customers. It's the reason you exist. And you know, you've had some recent surveys that have spotlighted how Metro riders feel about the increase in people seeking shelter in the stations. That's a tricky challenge that you guys are navigating. How is your homeless response initiative balancing the need to address both the experience of customers with the desire to assist those needing more permanent shelter? How are you guys making that work every day?
Yeah, so you're right. Customer experience is always top of mind. So it's top of mind for Metro staff as we're planning the future of our system. It's top of mind for our CEO and our board of directors as they're making program improvements and funding improvements. I think, you know, my top priority is the customer experience of the people experiencing homelessness on our system. And I don't know how more plainly to put that. You know, unhoused people who are seeking shelter in our system deserve access to resources, to care, to housing. And so my focus when I'm planning for our outreach teams on the system is to facilitate better connections to services and to housing for the unhoused individuals. We know that customer complaints and also operator complaints weigh heavily into, you know, people's decision whether they want to take the transit system or not. So I think we're always thinking about cleanliness. We're always thinking about safety improvements. You know, I'm constantly on the phone with our security team, with our operations team. We all work together. But essentially, the goal is to get people housing and to get people services. And we know that housing, moving from the street to housing is not linear, and it's not a short path. And so part of the work that I do is actually educating our staff, educating our board, and also educating the public that, you know, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, sir, do you want to go to a shelter tonight, right? It takes a lot of touches. It takes a lot of rapport building. And a lot of what our PATH team does expertly is to make those connections so that people are more willing to accept help when they're ready. So I would say it's twofold, like, you know, focusing on the humans and making sure they have a great experience riding transit, whether they're housed or unhoused.
Well, you guys are doing an awesome job. I mean, it's, again, been really great to see that firsthand. This is another big move that you've made. Can you talk us through the reason and the benefits of moving the oversight of the Homeless Response Initiative from the Security and Law Enforcement Office directly to the Office of the CEO? What does that change really look like, and how has it benefited your customers and folks experiencing homelessness?
Yeah, so the CEO made Metro's response to homelessness and partnering in the fight to end homelessness in LA County a top priority. And with that comes even greater agency alignment on our response and a more strategic kind of approach to the work that we're doing. The function under system security and law enforcement was more focused on safety and results, right? So it was like, it wasn't very human centered. And I think shifting the work to the CEO's office, we're able to be human centered and we're able to focus more on the outcomes of that individual. And, you know, we've seen the number of people where we are pairing with interim housing balloon because we are taking a more methodical approach to our outreach. And I think, you know, it's different when you have leaders, right, who are aware of the issues and who understand the issues and understand all the nuances. And I really appreciate that in our CEO, Stephanie Wiggins. One priority that she continues to move forward is it's called our Room to Work program. and it's an exciting program that is currently under development, but essentially we're trying to take people from the street to get them jobs in the transportation industry. We want to get them housing, we want to get them job training and life skills training. So like we are really like, you know, wading into the waters. We're not just like, hey, here's a hot meal and here's a bed. You know, she wants to see Metro really tap at the root causes of homelessness and see how we can contribute to people's success.
I can't tell you how inspiring I think that is. So you talked a little bit about this. I mean, you're clearly deeply committed to joint development to help provide solutions and, you know, funding interim shelter directly for people experiencing homelessness, along with the partnerships, you know, that you've already referenced. I was stunned when we first met, and I'll just go ahead and share this here. You know, Desiree and I connected because LAHSA had asked our team if we could deploy a couple teams to Union Station. And so we said, yeah, sure. Let's talk to Metro and deploy some teams to Union Station. And then Desiree and her team came back and said, well, what about all of our other stations? And we had a little bit of a like, you mean there's not already a plan for that? So, and Desiree did an awesome job really advocating and, you know, providing pictures of folks experiencing homelessness in the station and partnering with LAHSA to organize a specific count. That was so impactful and it's so important for our whole region. For people who don't know, all of that data drives decisions in Washington, in Sacramento, at the county, at City Hall about what services are needed and where they're needed. And it governs funding and opportunity. And so missing large numbers of people experiencing homelessness really hurts our region significantly. So can you tell us a little bit about like how your relationship has grown since that initial, you know, realization and what your team did and what the results of that were?
Yeah, so I'm so excited that we were connected because I think it was like a couple of nights before the count. And, you know, we were even thinking, what is the trust getting into, right? Union Station is a huge property. And do you know where to look for people to be able to count them, right? So I think it was a great start of the conversation and the relationship with LAHSA specifically on the count. And I think what we were able to do is really kind of take their motto for the count this year to heart, right? We really said everyone needs to count, right? And that includes the people who are seeking shelter in our lobbies, on the sidewalk levels around our stations after our system closes. Because I think there's a slight misconception that the reason why people maybe weren't counted previously, it's two things. One, Metro, we used to do our own count, right? So we would use our staff, we would use our law enforcement partners, we would use our outreach teams to actually do the count on our system. And we would share that data with LAHSA, but we're not entirely sure how it was used because the numbers were not tied to specific census tracts and council districts. And just like you said, that information is really important when we're talking about bringing funding into the region. So I think that LAHSA is starting to understand that we're not talking about people who are riding the train back and forth all day. We're talking about where they set up camp, right? When the system is closed, and where they're setting up camp is at our station entrances, on the sidewalk above our stations, and they're ready to get on the train when the system reopens at 4 a.m. So now we're meeting regularly with LAHSA's count team, and we're hoping to make sure that all of our stations are covered in the count in the future, and that we are in lockstep, providing staff, supporting volunteers, making sure people understand that they can and should be counting people on and near the transit system, because it's a population that you know, it was falling through the cracks, right? And Metro has really tried to kind of fill in the gap, but we can't do it without LAHSA and without the county support.
I can't tell you how impressed I was with how quickly you guys pulled that together. It was awesome. And so you know, now that you've got this relationship with LASA and you have these standing partnerships with PATH and LA Door and the Dream Center, and like, what future partnerships are you looking to develop, and what do you see happening next to build on this work that your team's done?
So, you know, we're always working and having conversations with industry leaders like yours. You know, I'm spending a lot of my time just learning about homelessness in LA County. We're open to innovation and kind of out of the box thinking. So we want to expand the number of outreach workers on our system. We want to expand the inventory of permanent housing and interim housing. We want to expand the network of supportive services that are out there. One thing that our PATH team is really good about doing is really telling us what's happening on the system and like the reality. So we have outreach workers, for example, that work on the weekends, but they have no showers to take people to, or they have no laundry resources to take people to. So we're like, okay, who do we need to get on the phone with to make those calls to expand the shower hours, you know, on the weekend, right? So maybe we can't get people into housing, but we can get them help, get them comfortable with working with PATH and with Metro, and then ultimately to permanent housing. So I think the world is wide open, and our board is prioritizing funding to be able to support different partnerships and different programs. So I'm excited about the future.
I'm excited about the future too. I think that is really awesome. We definitely have some extra time. So I'd like to, you know, for people who maybe don't ride the system all the time, or who aren't necessarily doing work that puts them in direct contact with outreach workers. Like, so the teams deploy in the morning, and tell us a little bit about like what their day looks like and what kind of things they're encountering, and you know, how they're problem solving.
Sure. So we have two shifts of multidisciplinary teams that go out on the system as early as 3 a.m. So
who's on the multidisciplinary team? Let's start there. Tell everybody what that means. What disciplines are represented?
So we have general outreach workers, we have clinicians, we have addiction specialists, we have nursing staff. So for example, even today, we met a man at Union Station. He looked like he needed medical attention. Our team was already there and ready, did an assessment in real time. So the team does the full assessment to get them enrolled into the HMIS. And then the nurse on the staff is able to get him assessed for whatever medical care that he would need. There are also case managers on the team. So that means like all of the follow-up that is necessary, even driving people to medical appointments, to the DMV, to the grocery store. Our teams are doing that work. And I think in a typical day, it can range from outreach teams going from station to station, delivering hygiene kits, right? Metro put together 2,000. I helped put together, to be honest, 2,000 hygiene kits, you know, with the help of our public relations department and with our operations team. And, you know, the care kits have masks and sanitizer and wipes and snacks and things. So they're handing those out on the system. Other days look like just purely case management, where they're moving someone out of a shelter and into permanent housing, or moving a family out of a motel and into a family shelter or a family housing location. So it can mean a lot of different things. And the teams they also have the history of understanding the transit system and understanding the population that we serve. I don't think people who choose to camp at transit stations or ride the train all day, they're unique, right? And their needs are unique. And a lot of them have severe disabilities or other severe medical issues that need to be addressed right away. And so our team is prepared to do that.
That's really That is awesome. I'm curious about some of the other partnerships. I know, the outreach work with PATH is obviously the backbone of the program, but tell us a little bit more about each of your other partners. Like, what specifically are you doing with the Dream Center?
Sure. The Dream Center goes out on, I think, Friday nights to Union Station, and they do outreach around midnight. And so they're connecting with people. Their outreach model is a little bit different. They're focused on sobriety, for example, and they have a particular program that they can enroll people in directly. And I think that's really awesome because the needs are there. The clients that they serve, they're able to find them on our transit network. So they're there on Friday nights. LA Door, they are in MacArthur Park, and they do meal services and connection to other services. So that's really important work as well. We have a partnership with CORE under the Department of Public Health, where they actually have a booth here at Union Station. So if anyone is nearby or stops by Union Station, the East Portal by the Customer Care Center, they actually are training people and giving out Narcan, so that you are able to meet the needs of your family members or a neighbor, or understand when someone is experiencing an overdose, and you're able to provide them the care. So they're doing that type of training. LA Mission is also, they are doing outreach on our system. They will start doing outreach a couple of days a week at some critical stations, and able to connect people to job training, to their addiction support, and to their housing. So we have our hands all over the place. I will also say that, we have made Metro land available also for tiny home villages on our properties. So we have a new partnership with the 9th Council District, where they're opening up a tiny home village directly on an expo site that wasn't being utilized.
Awesome. I want to thank Colleen for her question. We're going to do Q&A at the end. We have a couple other things to cover, but for everybody else, I'd love for you to put your questions for Desiree in the chat. I think this is just such a critically important topic. We are really excited to get to know you and your team better and work more closely with you. I mean, Metro has a huge facility, next to our headquarters, and we have housing on your 5th and 7th Street transit corridors. And I just feel like there's, so much opportunity for us to get to know each other better and work together more. So it's fantastic to have you here. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me, for sure.
I saw that Suzette Shaw logged on. I don't know if she can hear me or not, but Suzette, I hope you have a question when we get to Q&A at the end. And for anybody else, for sure, please just let me know in the chat. And so, Monica, I think that we need to go into the spring campaign and take action slides, and then come back to Q&A.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I can tell you guys about the spring campaign without the slide. We are working over the next 12 months to revitalize the gardens in our communities that have them. And we feel like this is a really awesome opportunity to engage our teams, our residents, our leaders, our board members, our corporate partners, and revitalize our gardens so that they can provide the sort of space for healing and community building that they're really intended to. And we're kicking that off with an event at the Star Apartments on June 11th. It's family friendly, and for folks who are planning to volunteer as part of the campaign, tickets are $25. So we're hoping to get a lot of folks come out and kick this off with us. We also have, social donor tickets for people who would like to participate but aren't necessarily interested in the gardening portion of it. And so you can support by donating, sponsoring gardens, volunteering, and then celebrating with us at the Planting Hope event on June 11th. Those links on your screen are live if you'd like to click them. And with that, I'll give Desiree, oh, always, we have the same calls to action every month. You can support our work through making a gift, adding your voice to advocate for permanent, supportive, and affordable housing and services throughout the community, and joining our mailing list. I'm assuming many of you are here because you are on our mailing list, but you can always ask a friend. So, Suzette, I see that you came back. How are you?
Hey, good. It's great to be. I was trying to make sure I made this meeting. I had a meeting with County Racial Equity. I'm like, oh, wait, when is that? I have to get there. So anyway, nice to be with you all. And I just wanted to thank you for raising the intersectionality of homelessness and our train and bus stations. You know, I oftentimes pass the same people who are living on a bench, on the concrete or what have you, at a bus stop, and wonder who is maybe calling on these particular people. And also I know a good few years ago, I flew in one night, I think it was from Philadelphia, and I went to take the shuttle from the airport to get home, and it should have been a really quick slam bam done. But I got from the shuttle at the airport to Union Station, asked the security guard how I would go about getting a ticket to get to Pershing Square. Was directed to, and I bought the ticket and all of that. And then I get downstairs and it had just closed. So now I have a ticket. And the police officers are, they're doing this thing where like they're all kind of centered, walking in this group to kind of guide people. And so they're trying to guide people towards moving them out of the station or what have you. I'm like, I got a ticket. You better not mess with me. I have got a ticket that I was directed to buy. And long story short, I ended up in that airport from like 12 to 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out how to get to Pershing Square, trying to figure out how to get home here to where I live now. And just by the grace of God, somebody that I knew ended up there at the station, and then they were like taking a lift or what have you. I didn't even have like access to do any of that stuff. So then they allowed me to, ride within their lift, and that's how I ended up getting home. But I was really astonished to see how many people there was in the Union Station who were, displaced and homeless. And there didn't seem like there was any real concerted effort of really trying to lead people to shelter beds, direct people to services, resources, no real triage for them. And so I know I missed the first 15 minutes, but I'm eager to know and hopeful that, you all are taking steps now to ensure the needs of this particular demographic. So thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for that, Suzette. You did miss a lot. It's amazing what Metro is doing, and I'm so glad you're here to learn more about it. And Desiree, do you want to just repeat the highlight reel?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for sharing your experience. I know taking transit, especially without the help of like technology, for example, my own experience getting to work today, I had to use 3 different apps, take Metro Micro to a bus, to 2 different trains. The bus didn't come when Google told me it was going to come. So I understand the frustration, but you noticing that the unhoused population maybe didn't have outreach workers right then during those hours. Unfortunately, our teams are out in the system starting at 3 a.m. So before the system closes, before the system opens around 3:30 or 4 a.m., our outreach workers are there doing that triage. The one huge caveat is that there's really nothing that we can provide, right, outside of normal business hours. There are no shelters that are open for intake before 9 a.m. The only option is potentially a motel room or a motel voucher, and that's really not a sustainable model. So when our outreach teams are there starting at 3 a.m., they are able to connect people directly. We also do train the security staff and the law enforcement partners that we have to be a little bit more trauma informed, right, in their approach to when they encounter unhoused individuals, to make sure that they're communicating, hey, PATH will be here soon. Make sure you look for someone wearing a blue shirt if you need help. The running thing that I'm hearing now is that everyone is telling unhoused individuals at Union Station that Metro will buy you a train ticket to wherever you want to go in the country. And it's with a little asterisk. If you commit to being enrolled in the program, we will help you get permanently housed. But there is a process to do that. And our PATH teams are well equipped to do that.
Thank you so much for that. I do have a couple questions in the chat. I will start with Colleen and then go to Mike Alvidrez. And then Mike, if you want to come on camera and ask your own question, you're welcome to do that. But Colleen asks Desiree, in your plan to be human oriented, is that in part your focus because you're trying to gain their trust so they're not looking to you simply to feed them physically? I think it may be useful for a lot of folks in the audience to just expand on what that move to human orientation for engagement and service is.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about being more human-centered, we're talking about really meeting people where they are to really understand what their needs are and not prescribing directly to them what we think, right? So someone on the system might, I've heard about clients who have housing available to them, but there are some barriers to them actually wanting to live in that housing. So our team is taking their time, building that trust, building those relationships. Even, okay, maybe you don't want to go to a shelter tonight, but can I make sure that you have your driver's license and social security number so that you can get your income and then be able to translate that into permanent housing, because maybe you don't want to live in a communal facility. So the human-centered approach means that the results might not be immediate, but they are going to be deep and far-reaching, because people who are unhoused are now noticing PATH, looking for PATH, requesting services, and they're not really just looking, for a handout for the day to be able to go back on the train the next day. So it's helping us to really slow down. I think that's the main thing.
Thank you for that. So this isn't even really a question. I don't know, Desiree, if you've met Mike Alvidrez yet, but he was the longtime CEO of Skid Row Housing Trust, and he's a current ambassador, and he built so much of the portfolio and has housed so many people. And he's just offering his kudos here in the chat. Thank you for sharing Metro's approach to dealing with our regional homelessness challenges. It's impressive that you and the Metro leadership have listened to and collaborated with the organizations and individuals who've been in the space for many years. You've already implemented many best practices, for example, multidisciplinary teams, hygiene assistance, trauma-informed care. Welcome to the struggle. Our collective efforts will make the LA metro area a better place for everyone. Bravo.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We need that kind of support and assurance, because I'm telling you, the leadership here, I get a lot of questions like, what do you mean? And having a support network like this one and experts like you all that I can turn to just really helps us to improve our service model.
Thank you for that. Suzette has lifted back up here in the chat a couple of things. Suzette is a very, very widely known advocate for people, especially women experiencing homelessness. And she did notice that, women are seeking safety in the station. She's also thanking you and thanking Mike for finding her housing. So Suzette, do you have anything that you'd like to add before I go to Monica?
Thanks. No, I just wanted to highlight that the intersectionality of homelessness and displacement and women are huge, and I think it's part of, you know, that ongoing work that needs and struggle of how many of us have been, you know, domestic violence survivors who have fled precarious living situations. I know from, you know, Christina Miller and her work past, you know, oftentimes, you know, the airport and train stations and so forth is where many women who are oftentimes victims of sex trafficking and end up. And so, yeah, I just, you know, wanted to support the fact of, you know, there are, that triage is needed, you know, throughout our system.
Suzette, you're actually on mute. We can't hear you right now.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what you heard. No, I was just saying that I was, I forgot what I was saying, but that I noticed that, you know, many of us women who have fled DV situations and so forth, we end up looking for safety. And I know from the work with Christina Miller over the years that one of the safety nets is, you know, train stations and airports and bus stations. And so I'm just highlighting the fact of, you know, triage is not just here in Skid Row or at PATH or what have you. Triage is like throughout our community, you know, from the grocery store to, you know, on and on and on to our train and bus station. So I just wanted to thank you for the work that you all are implementing and doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzette. Oh, hi, Mike. Do you want to deliver your kudos in person?
Well, I do. I don't have. I'm not a Metro writer, but first I want to say hi, Suzette. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Second, I just wanted again to congratulate Desiree and the leadership at Metro. You know, this is. It's not easy for large public agencies to course correct, especially when there's a crisis going on. It's very difficult. I think, Desiree, you spoke to the issue. You have to do a lot of explaining. You've got a complex set of relationships with different cities and counties, and it's all very difficult. So I just wanted to applaud you for the efforts that you guys have made and sort of understand what's really needed, where people are at. What does this person need right now that we can help provide to them? So I just want to say thank you, and hope to work with you in the future sometime. And with that, I'm going to check out. Good to see you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you,
I've got
Mike.
one last question for you, Desiree. And it's been so much fun to have you here today, and we're really, really grateful you made the time to share with us. This has been awesome. Monica is asking, with the criminalization of homelessness being such a hot button topic in Los Angeles and other major cities, it's wonderful that Metro's leaders saw the need to shift to oversight. And she's wondering how that transition worked internally. Was it really smooth? Did law enforcement just say, oh, thank God you guys are here? Or, you know, how did that go?
I wish it were smooth. I should wear a t-shirt in some staff meetings that says homelessness is not a crime, because it's usually how I have to open my remarks whenever I'm in a meeting with people to remind them that homelessness is not a crime, and that we are dealing with human people who deserve dignity and respect. And, you know, so no, it hasn't been a smooth transition, but it's been a welcome transition, right? Because the responsibility being so heavily in our law enforcement partners and in our system security, it was a lot. You're telling them to keep the system safe and secure, but then you're also telling them at the same time that they need to focus on all of the activities of unhoused people, and if they're sleeping, if they're doing drugs and things like that. We had to separate it to really maximize not only the safety, but also maximize our outcomes with the clients that we serve. So it's just, we're still in a transition period, and I'm just constantly just helping, like I said, to educate people and just raise awareness of more than just the fact that someone who's unhoused may be making your commute a little uncomfortable. You know, there are in my mind, there are worse things to encounter on a train than someone who's sleeping there. It's like, okay, they took your seat, stand up. You have the ability to stand up for a few stops. You know, but we want to make sure that we, you know, are communicating. You know, I met with the LA Times, for example. They did a story. They were talking about the crime, the rising crime on the transit system. Crime is rising all around the county. Crime is rising all around the city of LA. And I think we really need to do a better job of communicating that the crime is not directly correlated to the homeless population, right? And I think people like to bunch it together because it's easy to place blame or to say this is a scapegoat because they are a population that's very easy to spot and point the finger at. But I really, a lot of the discussions I have is just separating, like, hey, when someone commits a crime, is their housing status important? That's one question that I like to ask people. Is it the fact that they committed a crime, or is it the fact that they didn't have anywhere to sleep the night before they committed the crime? I try to really wrap my head around that. And it really warms my heart when, you know, even last week, and I'll stop rambling, but because I know we're short on time, but one of the sergeants actually in our Metro Transit Security family, he stopped the meeting and said, homelessness is not a crime, you know, and it's like, ooh, it makes me feel good because if our transit security partners can understand that, our LAPD partners can understand that, well, you know, our sheriff's team, it's going to change the perspective of our riders too, right? You don't have to be afraid of someone who's experiencing homelessness. They might literally just need help, and you might be able to provide that help to them, and brighten their day and brighten your day in the process. So I think we have a lot of learning to do and a lot of shifting and growing that we're going to do, and growing is painful.
That was so incredibly well said. By the way, the chat is still, I mean, you're recruiting fans right and left. And we do have a little bit more time, so I'll tell you about your fans. Lance Simon from Egan Simon Architecture, who is systemically very significant in this fight. You know, he's the board chair at Shelter Partnership. Asks, where can this helpful information be found pertaining to how we can help Metro help the unhoused? I know, Lance, that I can connect you directly to Desiree. But Desiree, for the audience, is there some place to go or something you can put in the chat that has an overview of what you're doing?
I will give everyone my email address because we transitioned the work. We're still updating our website. So if you look at metro.net and you search homelessness task force, you'll find some basic information there that's a little bit out of date. But I'll definitely put my contact in the chat and I'll share with you. We do updates at the board on a quarterly basis, so you can kind of see the data and understand the work a little bit better. And we're always looking for new partners. So definitely reach out to me and we can have coffee, virtual coffee, so that I can pick your brains on how we can do a better job.
Thank you so much. Sierra Adelano, our current CEO, says, thank you for all your efforts supporting our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Education is key. And then Rachel Calderon-Bell, who is our housing navigation coordinator and is famous in our communities because she has housed so many people. Thanks, Suzette, for her input and says how much she appreciates it. And then Lance, I will definitely get you in touch with Desiree directly. Desiree, it has been such a joy to have this conversation and learn more about your work and the, you know, comprehensive and collaborative approach that you're taking. And this truly is a regional issue, and Metro is in a unique position, you know, as the regional place where people come together. So it's very inspiring to see what you're doing, and we're grateful to your work and looking forward to partnering more closely with you.
Thank you again, and thanks everyone for your interest. And, you know, get out on the system, take a ride. You can call or text me if you need a transit buddy, and we can explore the transit system. So thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And for everybody else, we will see you again next month. But we're really happy that you're all here and grateful for your participation.